Hi, I'm Kyle Blakely with Mark Waller, and this is the new episode of We Have Issues, a podcast that looks at political issues primarily around Colorado, but we're also going to be talking a little bit about some of the updates in the national presidential race this week. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Apparently my dog's having issues too. He's driving me nuts here. Uh Running around my feet here. Golly. The things
Nice.
that we go through, Kyle, the first world problems that we have.
True, very true. So what you're saying is your dog's acting a little weird?
Yes, weird. It seems like that's the theme of the day, huh?
It,
Weird.
uh,
Everybody keeps using that term.
it was so funny. I didn't see it right away when it first popped up and started. And then all of a sudden, one day it was like everything and uh, made it sound like even Trump was getting defensive about it and stuff. But it's amazing to me what our politics has become.
Well, yeah, how you got to come up with these taglines to try to define people. But what amazed me the most about this is how quickly this caught fire with the Democrats. And like in lockstep, they just go forward and everybody's all of a sudden calling Trump and JD Vance weird. Did you ever watch Star Trek The Next Generation?
I did not. I watched a little bit of the original Star Trek, but that was about it for me.
How can you not have watched Star Trek The Next Generation? Perhaps one of the greatest things on TV ever in the history of TV, and you haven't watched it. Well, you know so in the TV series, the sort of principal bad guys in this are this group called the Borg. And the Borg are this like all these like people that have been assimilated into Borg culture, and they're like this have this like whole collective hive brain thinking thing. And the Democrats have always reminded me of the Borg, that somehow they collectively think together and they're like this hive-like mentality. And I think Weird proved it, and the fact that Kamala Harris just ascended to the throne of the Democratic Party has kind of proved that as well. It's just absolutely amazing to me.
Yeah, I guess it's official. I saw today that they said, I don't know if they did a secret vote somewhere, but somebody said it in the news. I saw it said it was official.
That,
So,
yeah, somehow she had enough delegates to be the nominee. Yeah, I'm not really sure how that happened either.
and I don't know if that had to happen before she could announce her vice presidential running mate, Governor Walz from Minnesota, which I don't know about you, but for me, again, just simply paying attention in the news, I had my own opinion that I thought Shapiro might be the best choice to help her take Pennsylvania, considering how important it is. And then all of a sudden, just over the last couple of weeks, here a little bit more each day, you'd see Walz's name pop up in the list, and lo and behold, he's the choice.
Well, apparently he's the one that coined the weird term, and it sort of caught fire after he said it a couple of times. So maybe that's the reason they picked him.
Yes.
I thought all along it was probably going to be Shapiro or Mark Kelly. I thought Shapiro was a little bit of a dangerous choice because, he's Jewish. I heard he actually had uh, been a member of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces in Israel, and a lot of people thought that maybe that would cause a problem for some turn off some of the younger voters that the Democrats are looking to get. But I actually heard a story just today about Shapiro. I don't know if it's true. I haven't fact checked this at all. I don't know if it's coming out, but apparently there's a story that's percolating and might be coming out about Shapiro that said back when he was a prosecutor, he actually dismissed a case against a suspected murderer because he thought, or he said, that the person who had been murdered had committed suicide. But somehow the person that had been murdered or committed suicide had been stabbed in the back like 37 times or something, some ridiculous
Wow.
number of times. And the thought was, well, how can somebody commit suicide by stabbing themselves in the back? multiple times. But I've heard that story. Again, I haven't fact checked it at all. I don't know, but we'll see if that comes out, and maybe that was an impactor for Shapiro as well. But what about Mark Kelly? Why not Mark Kelly?
Yeah, he just kind of disappeared pretty quickly. Well, not pretty quickly, but they narrowed it down to three, and then next thing I know, they said it was down to two. I was kind of surprised with them leaking that much. I mean, again, you say who the final two are, and then Shapiro doesn't get picked, and what does that do for his profile or whatever within the party going forward? It's like, do your interviews and tell us who you picked, and leave it at that. But at some point, it'll be interesting to see if they do explain the vetting process more, and how Walz did come kind of a little bit out of nowhere. I saw something today that said some poll, 71% of the people in the poll never heard of him. So they've got a little bit of work there, but yeah, it'd be interesting to know what some of the details were.
I mean, you and I are a couple of fairly tuned in guys, right? I mean, I don't claim to be smarter than I am, but this is our profession and our business, something that we've worked in for a long time. I knew very little about the guy.
Yeah.
Very little. And, of course, it's starting to come out now and starting to hear a little bit more about him. It seems like he's a pretty, self-proclaimed progressive.
Yeah, they said, although something I saw said when he was in the House of Representatives, he was fairly centrist in his voting, and that even as governor, and again, no, I haven't done any research to know what these issues might have been. They said he even had a few somewhat populist issues that he supported. So I don't know. I've heard both. It'll be interesting to see as more news comes out, but former teacher, I guess, was in the House for 6 terms or something like that before he ran for governor. So I don't know. We'll see. But it seems like a fairly safe choice. I don't know if it helps her in Pennsylvania. Saw something that said it might help her in Wisconsin and Michigan. But we'll see. I don't know. I mean, there's top minds working on it.
I think a lot of people thought JD Vance was a safe choice too. And,
weird.
Yeah, it's weird stuff. No, I mean, it's one of those things. I think it's the way politics are today, it's going to be about, the Democrats trying to get him defined by themselves before the Republicans define him.
Yeah. Yep. So it'll be, and a week from now, when we do another episode, it'll be interesting to see what's transpired, because the way things have moved over the last 4 or 5 weeks, who knows what we might have next week. Trump might have dumped Vance by then.
Yeah, who knows? Well, I heard, have you heard the news? He's coming to Colorado. Trump.
Oh, seriously?
Is coming to Colorado. And I assumed it was because he was going to dump Vance and announce that you were going to be his running mate. I thought that's what was going to happen, but maybe I don't have the news on that correct either. I don't know.
Hey, that would be weird. If
no, he's coming to, it sounds like he's coming to Vail next week. $25,000 a plate fundraiser.
Oh, wow. Who's hosting?
That's a big secret. Nobody knows.
Oh, interesting.
Nobody knows who's actually funding it. Nobody knows where it's going to be. But $25,000 a plate fundraiser. I assumed you were hosting it.
Nope. But the thing is, if he does want to try and lock in the Rhino vote, I could be probably on the short list for that.
He gets a self-proclaimed Rhino. If Walz is a self-proclaimed progressive, you're a self-proclaimed Rhino.
Although I can't say that anymore because I'm not even a Republican anymore. So I guess I'm a former Rhino or something. I don't know.
So it looks like you're coming to us from the courtroom today.
I am. I thought with our guest and topic for today, I thought it would be appropriate for me to be hanging out in a courtroom. We have former Colorado Secretary of State Scott Gessler, who's going to be on in a little bit. And the topic for today, again, is everything that's going on with the state of Colorado Republican Party. There's lawsuits going around, all kinds of claims from both sides, the Dave Williams and his supporters, and then the folks from some of the county GOP parties that are trying to get a meeting together to see if they can get Dave voted out. So I'm excited because I'm kind of surrounded by attorneys at times, obviously with you and my daughter. And so
And your life couldn't be better.
true.
Constantly enhancing your life with all of our abundance of legal knowledge.
Well, but I feel like I'm also pretty good at admitting when there's an area I don't know much about. And so that's today's topic with Scott. So that's why I'm kind of anxious for this, because for me, this is going to be a complete learning experience about, again, what are the legal issues, what's allowed, what's not allowed. As you said, who has standing? I have no idea on some of this stuff. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting topic. I got to tell you, I feel like we should be playing music from Law and Order, given your background or something like that. Should have been the intro coming in today. Gessler just texted me. He said, "Give me 3 minutes. I have to go to the latrine." So,
oh, nice.
He must be an old Army guy.
I was going to say, I think so.
Yeah, in the Air Force, we just call that the restroom. And in the Navy, they call it the head, right? So,
yeah.
No, I think Scott, Scott is one of the premier attorneys in Colorado, if not the premier attorney in Colorado when it comes to election law and stuff of this nature. I think he is absolutely the perfect guest for us today. I think he's gosh, I don't remember, maybe even Yale educated attorney. I know one of those Ivy League schools, right?
Yale undergrad, Michigan for his Juris Doctor, and an MBA from Northwestern.
200-pound brain. I think that's the way we should refer to him. I mean, one of the smarter guys out there. When he was Secretary of State, I was the Republican leader in the state house. We would refer to him as the honey badger. You remember that video from several years ago? Honey badger don't give a shit. That was Scott Gessler, man, through and through. He was the honey badger. So let's see if he is, I'm going to admit him, and let's see if he's back from the latrine and see if he's ready to go.
Well, Scott, nice to meet you.
Great meeting you as well.
Appreciate you doing this today.
Absolutely.
I was telling Mark, for me, you and Mark are both attorneys. You understand the legal issues related to certain things, obviously, much better than I do. So I'm really kind of looking at today as an opportunity to learn some stuff. So that's kind of what I'm hoping as we get into this conversation about the state Republican Party and everything that's going on. Go ahead, Mark.
So obviously, Scott, what we're trying to figure out here is what is the status of all of this? We hear a bunch of legal wranglings going on. Like one section of the party holds a meeting under a bridge. The other section of the party wants to hold a meeting, and then all of a sudden a judge says, "Well, no, you can't hold a meeting. I guess until I make a decision that you can hold a meeting." So we're trying to figure out where all of the legal wranglings are and what's going on with the state of the Republican Party in Colorado.
So my understanding is that the judge basically said that and I have friends on both sides of the battle, so sure. I'm not really weighing in on the merits. But basically what happened is the judge said, look, this other meeting, the one that hasn't been called by the chairman, cannot go forward under the auspices of the Republican Party. So they can still meet if they want, but they can't do it as part of an official Republican Party meeting. That's sort of what the judge said.
But did the judge say that for all time, or is the judge just had some sort of temporary stay in place waiting to make a decision.
It was very much temporary.
Okay.
So, in the law, you have what are called preliminary injunctions. And a preliminary injunction is where you go into court and you say, hey, judge, I'm probably going to win on the merits. And hey, judge, the public interest requires it. And hey, judge, if this meeting goes forward or if this thing happens, there will be irreparable harm to me. I won't be able to recover it from it, or it'll be irreparable damages. And so I want a temporary, some people call it a temporary restraining order. That's a type of preliminary injunction. But so what the judge did is he issued a preliminary injunction saying, for this meeting right now, you can't do it as an official Republican Party meeting.
So when's the judge going to decide?
So I don't know that, but I do know that, there's been a response filed, I think by the people wanting to have the meeting. And, and so there's going to be a hearing where the judge will look at the whole case on its merits and say at some point, yes, you can have another meeting, or no. And that may be different because the judge really sort of talked about this particular meeting. They may try under the bylaws. I think it requires 25%, if I'm correct, or, signatures by a certain percentage of people to hold a meeting that the chairman doesn't call, to demand a meeting. And then if the chairman doesn't call the meeting, anyone who's a voting member who signed this request can call the meeting. So they may try again, and we'll see, the judge could, enjoin or stop that as well. So it's really sort of in limbo. Now, if I'm on the Republican Party side, the official chairman's side, I'm feeling pretty good right now because I got a judge who said, you'll probably succeed on the merits. You'll probably be able to stop these types of meetings or under these circumstances. And I'm going to stop the meeting right now. So that's a good outcome for the state party there.
So from what I've read, and again, the folks who wanted to bring the vote to try and oust Dave Williams, a couple of people, they circulated a petition. They got at least 25% of the Central Committee members to sign the petition. Is that not legal within the bylaws of the Republican Party in Colorado? I mean, it sounded like they were trying to do it the official way that the bylaws allow, but then got shot down. So I don't know. You know much about the bylaws of the party and if that's legal.
So that is legal under the bylaws. And then what the bylaws say is the chairman can call a meeting. And my understanding is that he did call a meeting in, I think it was Bayfield, Colorado.
Yep.
That was the under the bridge meeting, right?
I heard it was under the bridge. I don't know for sure. I wasn't there. Although I will tell you, I have been in Bayfield.
So it was under the bridge.
Yeah, when I ran for office in 2010, I think it was either 2010 or 14, I spent an evening in Bayfield at like this, pavilion where all these high school students recited a portion of the U.S. Constitution. It was actually a really neat meeting. I think it was 2010 Tea Party. Anyway, so I think what happened is they said, well, look, that meeting doesn't satisfy the requirements of the bylaw, so we're going to hold our own meeting. And the judge said, no, you can meet, but you can't meet as a Republican Party. That's not an official meeting. So I think that's sort of the dispute. But yeah, if they do, and I did double check the bylaws, if a certain percentage demand a meeting, then the chairman can call the meeting. And if the chairman refuses to call the meeting, then it says any member any of the central committee can call the meeting, which is a little bit could create some problems, because what if you have two people calling their own meeting, and there's two competing meetings among the people who have signed the petition. So there could be some issues there, but I don't think it's actually reached that point. I think what happened is that the chairman did call a meeting. Some people weren't happy with it. They didn't like the fact it was under the bridge and in Bayfield. But there's nothing in the bylaws that talks about where the meeting has to take place. It's just the time of the meeting. And assumably it has to take place in Colorado.
Or what about like notice requirements? Like, chairman's like, well, I'm calling a meeting at home in my bathroom, and doesn't say anything to anybody. Does that satisfy the meeting requirements? I mean, do you actually have to put notice out? Does notice have to be given like 24 hours in advance? I mean, are there any sort
Yes.
of requirements that way?
So there are notice requirements. Yeah, so it says upon the written request of 1/4 of the voting members, and for those of you who love sections, it's Article 7, Section D of the bylaws. And it says the chairman has to call it within 10 days after the receipt of the request. And then if the chairman fails to call the meeting, any voting member may issue a call at the expense of the CRC. So that could be a little bit weird if like 2 members issued a call if the chairman doesn't do it. So the chairman has to call it within 10 days. And if the chairman doesn't call it within 10 days, any other voting member, and then the meeting has to be held within 30 days of the call. So yeah, there are notice requirements.
Well, wait. So you said the chairman has to call it within 10 days, but I don't think you said like, so, say the chairman calls it on the 9th day or even calls it on the first day, but says, the meeting's going to be, in a half hour, or the meeting's going to be in 30 minutes. Is there any sort of, like it seems to me that, part of the issue is, hey, if I'm a central committee member, I live in, frickin' Logan County, and the meeting's happening in Durango, I got to have like time to be able to get to the meeting, right?
Right.
So are there requirements that way? Like once the meeting is called, like how long in advance do you have to say the meeting is called before the meeting actually happens?
So that section of the bylaws is silent on the issue. So maybe the next version of the bylaws should talk about that. Now you're saying, okay, well, so what if a chairman says, okay, I'm going to call the meeting within 1 day of getting the request, and the meeting is in 1 day. Okay, so that's within 30 days of the call. It's tomorrow. Now, for that to be a valid meeting, you still have to have a quorum of I think it's 1/3 of the voting membership. So there has to be a quorum for it to be a valid meeting.
What happens if it's not, though?
Then that probably doesn't count as a meeting, and it has to be re-noticed. Probably, I say. So look, I think the framework that we have here, so the Republican Party is a private organization, obviously, and they get to conduct the affairs the way they see fit. Now, corporations are private organizations. LLCs are private organizations. And an LLC LLC will have articles of organization, a corporation will have bylaws, and people can sue in court under those bylaws. And I think, in my view, people can, members of the Republican Party can sue the Republican Party for failing to follow its own bylaws, just as members of any other private organization can. So let's say you have that situation. Could someone file a lawsuit and they say, yeah, I mean, this is what the bylaws say, but there's still a duty to interpret the bylaws in a reasonable manner. That's what someone could say. And now there is a line of cases that basically says the Republican Party is a private organization. The state has to stay out of the affairs of the Republican Party. They get to govern themselves any way they see fit. And that's certainly true. They get to set up the bylaws the way they see fit. I guess
here's the problem, Scott, real quick. Republicans have proven in this state over and over again, we're not capable of governing ourselves. It's an issue. I said it, not you.
I think the Republicans can oftentimes be open to lots of criticism in the state here.
Yeah,
so,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. So, I mean, I guess there's a question is, could you say, well, we have to interpret the bylaws in a reasonable manner? Now, what's reasonable? It's really sort of what a court views as reasonable. Is having a meeting under a bridge in Bayfield reasonable? Maybe, maybe not. This judge, because he ruled in favor of the Republican Party and whatnot, would probably say, yeah, I mean, unless you're really abusing what's going on. I mean, Bayfield's in the state, and you did notice it, and some people showed up, so that's good enough. And the judge may even say, well, it's not a reasonableness standard, it's a abuse of discretion standard, for example, say, unless you're being abusive, I'm not going to step in. You may not be the most reasonable, but you're not being abusive. So the judge could use different standards in maybe assessing that. But my sense is that judges are normally going to give a lot of deference to what the official membership, what the sort of leadership of the state party does. They were the ones elected. The judge is going to say, look, unless something's really wrong, I'm not going to step into the affairs of this private organization called the Republican Party. And my sense is that's probably sort of what's going on here with this judicial decision, or the preliminary injunction, is that judge is, hesitant to, to override or allow a group to override the decisions of the leadership of the Republican Party. There's deference to that leadership.
Could the meeting be done virtually? Is that allowed within the bylaws or by law?
I have to check. I don't think so. I do think it requires I do think they require face-to-face, but I'm not absolutely sure. I'd have to double check that.
And as you're kind of looking into that, so it seems to me what you're saying is courts are reluctant to weigh into these party squabbles. I mean, like they really don't want to make decisions, and they're like, hey, I want to stay out of this. You guys figure this out on your own.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, unless there's a state statute that specifically overrides or that specifically governs party affairs. So I was involved in a case, I don't know, 4 years ago, I think. Yeah, it was during all the quarantines. And so there was a Senate district meeting that was held. And there are questions about, was it held properly? Were things counted properly? And the state party made a decision, and they said, well, the second candidate didn't get 30% on the ballot, so it was not allowed on the ballot. And the state party said, well, we think there were voting irregularities. And because of those voting irregularities, this person should be on the ballot. Okay. So I was involved in a case, and the lawsuit was filed against the official who was a party volunteer who ran the meeting. And the state party intervened. In other words, they got involved in the lawsuit too, because they said, hey, we're going to go defend this state official, or the party official.
The party of volunteer.
Exactly. But the reason we sued the party official, okay, the guy who ran the Senate meeting, was because he was named in the statute as the guy to run the meeting, or gal, man or woman, the person to run the meeting and then certify the results for inclusion on the primary. And that person said, look, I'm not going to fight this lawsuit. I'm not here to fight a lawsuit. I'm just going to do whatever the heck the judge says. So my client, we filed the lawsuit, and then the state party intervened. And the fight there was, well, do we just defer? I mean, do we defer and let the Colorado Republican Party Central Committee make the decision to put that person on the ballot? Or is there a state authority that controls? In this case, the state authority controlled, because there was a very specific statute that said this stuff has to happen. But in this instance, it seems as though there's no state statute that governs. So you're specifically looking at the bylaws. And I think you're right. A court's going to defer to the elected party leadership unless something is really amiss.
And so
go ahead, Kyle. Sorry.
So it's got the temporary restraining order, whatever that is, the temporary stay or whatever. They elect the leadership every 2 years, I think, in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, at this point, do they just wait it out until next spring and then go through the normal election process? Or, is it still, could it still resolve itself this fall at some point through the legal channels?
It depends. If the people who are trying to call the meeting really want to push the issue, and they say, look, we didn't succeed this round in calling a meeting, but we're going to call another one and require a meeting and go forward and push it. And my understanding is that is happening, but I don't know the exact status. Yeah, I mean, the party rules have very specific there's a very specific procedure for vacancies. And if the chairman is removed, that creates a vacancy. So then there's another election in which, okay, we hereby declare a vacancy, and then you have another election. Okay. So it says the vice chairman shall mail or otherwise transmit the call for a meeting to all members of the Central Committee within 10 days of the vacancy in the office of the chairman. And then the meeting shall be held within 30 days of the call. So you do have sort of those notice provisions.
Yeah.
And a vacancy includes removal of that office. Now, those are for elective offices. Obviously, there's officers that are appointed, and if there's a vacancy there, it's filled by an appointment again. So, so there would be a second election, and it's not all just one election. It would be two elections to one to remove the officer, and then the second to fill the vacancy created. And I don't see anything in the bylaws, interestingly enough, that would prohibit the removed officer from running again to fill the vacancy. So who knows? Now, your question is the juice worth the squeeze this close to the election?
Yeah, I was gonna say, ultimately, becomes a moot point as we're careening towards the election here in November, right? I mean, that's really the state party chair's primary function, is to get effing Republicans elected in the election cycle. And it seems like, as Republicans, I get so frustrated about this. We are doing anything but working to try to get Republicans elected right now.
Well, as you may know, I ran for state party chair in 2021, early 2020.
Well, the reason we're having you on is because we're starting the Scott Gessler for state party chair in 2025.
Let me quash that. Let me quash that as soon as possible. Squelch it and quash it. So anyway, so I ran in 2021 and was very frustrated, disappointed, disgusted at the way the party was operated after that. And frankly, in 2022, we had, because I spent some time researching it, the worst election results for Republicans in the history of the state of Colorado. So the worst election results in almost 150 years was the 2022 election. So yeah, I mean, there are problems there. And again, I'm not going to weigh in on, whether the current chairman's done a good or bad job, but no,
I'll do that. He's done a shitty job. Come on, man. I'll handle that all on my own, please.
So look, here's the thing. I mean, someone may say there's a lot of ways to look at this, and this isn't obviously legal. I mean, if you think he's doing a bad job and someone wants to take over at this point, it could be the die is cast, it's a poisoned chalice, whatever metaphor. Or, if people think he's doing a great job and you want to take over, I still think to a large extent the die is cast. I mean, to get a new chairman in position in September, maybe as late as October, I mean, that chairman's really going to have very little opportunity to raise money and put a program in place. Now the person who wants to be chairman, if there's more than one or whoever wins it, may say, well, look, what I really want to do is get involved now instead of waiting until March or April of 2025. So I get a 5-month head start because I'm going to run again in April or March, whenever the election is. And so I'm going to try again, and this will give me a 5-month head start. So who knows? I mean, I've seen all kinds of different reasoning for different groups, but I think regardless, it's going to be very hard for a new chairman to make an impact on this upcoming election. I just think it's going to be very hard.
Sure. And I don't think that can happen, right? Like, I don't think that we are going to have an impact. I mean, that die is cast. And so I've actually said to a couple of people, hey, why would you even consider doing this? Like, what possible benefit is there in replacing the chair now? Right? Like, do you want to own this? If Republicans end up having major losses, you want to own that as the brand new state party chair that had, no ability to impact the outcome of the election. And here's the reasoning I get for making that replacement now. It's no secret that this chair has changed the bylaws, has, kind of engaged in some shenanigans to get some stuff done. And I think there's a concern that that's going to continue to happen. So for example, there's this whole idea about canceling the primary. We've all heard about it. Making sure that people are only elected, people only get to the primary ballot through the assembly process, get rid of the petition process, get rid of the primary election for folks. And I think that's the concern that people are really worried about this chair doing between now and the end of his term in, whatever it is in March, April.
So I'm not aware of that. Maybe that's happening, maybe not. But look, I mean, here's the thing. At the end of the day, it's still an electoral process, and you've got the Central Committee organized as it is now, and whether the chair pushes that or not, he's going to have to get the votes of the Central Committee to make those changes. And the people who are against those changes, probably need to fight it out in front of the Central Committee, because I mean, chair's just one vote of what, 300-400 Central Committee members.
Yeah, but if you have a meeting under a bridge and, try to make it hard for people to show up.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, it just is what it is, I suppose.
But
yeah,
Scott, your point about getting a 5-month head start makes a ton of sense to me. If 2022 was the worst performance in 150 years, even if somebody steps in now, odds are this November, they could move the needle up from that, even if it's just a little bit, and start to get the momentum headed back the other direction.
Yeah, maybe. Look, I'm not really sure a new chair is going to be able to move the needle a whole lot in the last 2 months of an election. I just don't. I mean, if the chairman's doing a great job and has put a program in place that's going to win and succeed, and you get a new chair in 2 months before the election, that successful program is still going to be in place, whether it's, or if it's a bad program, however people view it. And again, I'm very, very careful. I don't want to take a side.
Even having a program in place, which it appears to me, it's not even there, right?
Well, I think there is some stuff going on. I mean, I really do. And I know there's some money that's being deployed and spent. Is it enough money? Is it being deployed the right way? I get it. There's always debates about that. But my point is this. So this is August. We're approaching mid-August. If there's a vacancy, okay, if there's going to be a recall or a removal, that process is going to take several weeks. That brings us towards the end of August. Then you got a process for filling the vacancy. That could take up to 40 days. All right. So what are you looking at? Mid-September, end of September? Ballots go out mid-October.
Yeah.
I mean,
probably that first week of October, right? Or like the 10th or something.
It's 22 days before the election. And the election's November 5th. So you're looking what, October 14th or so is when they go out, if my math is right. So I don't think a new chair is going to be able to influence the outcome very much at all, either positively or negatively. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm with you on that for this election cycle. It's the other stuff that I worry about. So for example, the whole the fact that we pass some sort of bylaw change or whatever change it was to allow people to be to endorse in the primary, allow the state party to endorse in primary elections. To me, something that should never have happened. We shouldn't be doing that in the state of Colorado, right? That only caused dissension and problems leading up to the primary, and that's still spilling over as we go forward to the general election. So
look, I mean, my sense is there's a lot of people who share that viewpoint. And one of the challenges, I think, and the people who, one of the challenges is that the Republican Party made a lot of endorsements in the primary and lost most of them. Okay, so that, so that creates an additional challenge, at least for the people supporting that viewpoint. Look, I mean, there's a couple other things out there. For example, you've got this ballot initiative that would completely, frankly, destroy our primary process as it is now, further marginalize the political parties, and basically make it easy for rich guys and gals, far easier for them to win office, because it would create this open primary where everyone runs against everyone else. The top four go to this weird, complex, sometimes incomprehensible instant runoff voting system. And that's at that
You're talking about ranked choice voting, right?
Technically, it's instant runoff voting. There's lots of different types of ranked choice voting. It is an instant runoff vote if you look at the literature and the academic analysis. It's a version of ranked choice voting, which in my view sort of sucks. But that said, that's going to completely change the dynamics of the Republican Party, because anyone that mandates under state law, anyone can petition on, and anyone could put the word Republican after their name if they want it for the Republican Party to run in the primary. And at that point, the Republican Party can nominate people. And probably the main thing that the Republican Party can do then is endorse people to try and weed out the people who are not really Republicans, or maybe want to, not that anyone nowadays wants to put their name as a Republican on a statewide ballot, but who knows? I mean, Republicans have become, quite the minority. So that could, but my point is that's going to, or could, if it gets passed, fundamentally change the dynamics of what parties do. It will change the dynamics. I think I can predict how it'll change, but you never know.
Yeah, things that we should be working on as opposed to fighting with each other.
I think that ballot initiative would be a terrible thing. And I think, and actually that's one area I think where a lot of Republicans and Democrats agree.
Yeah, well, and I mean, there are other ballot initiatives out there that we should be focusing on as well, right? Instead of fighting amongst each other in the Republican Party.
Maybe. Look, I mean, there's an argument that that the Republican Party as a party should not get involved in ballot issues, should really only focus on candidates.
Yeah, I mean, that could be fair. I know that, sometimes when stuff is on a ballot, it tends to help down the ballot. If you have good, stuff that gets Republicans excited, that, can kind of help down the ballot. But it would be nice if we focused on getting Republicans elected. And that's something we have not done a great job of as Republicans in the state of Colorado for a little while.
I definitely agree with you on that. I think we've had a lot of problems with Republican leadership not commenting on the current Republican leadership, because I'm not here to throw stones at anyone. But I think certainly in the past we've had some problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, I mean, obviously, we haven't had a net gain of a seat in the state house since 2010. Literally have not had a net gain of a seat in the state house.
Yeah, that's true. The house has gotten worse and worse and worse.
I mean, super minority, we're probably going to lose a seat here in El Paso County in the state Senate. I think maybe if Republicans do things correctly, we can be able to pick up a seat in the state Senate. I mean, in this, by all measures, this should be an election that Republicans are running away with. Yeah. I mean, the Democrats are in complete disarray right now. Republicans should be destroying it, right? Like, should be crushing this election cycle. And, we're going to be happy if we hold serve.
Yeah, if that, and look, I would argue that it's not merely the Republican Party leadership that's had issues in the past, but also, and I think, Mark, we've talked about this and you agree with me, a lot of problems with the donor base. Some of the choices they've made, or their willingness to get involved compared to the Democrat donor base. I think there's a big disparity there. And sort of the, the non-party, non-governmental institutions that the Democrats have created over time, that Republicans haven't. And it's been, or I should say conservatives haven't. And there's a huge disparity there. And Republicans have been talking about it ever since the blueprint came out in 2000, 2008, 2009, that book.
Before that was like 5 or 6, somewhere around there. But yeah.
And been talking about it and haven't stepped up to do it.
Well, listen, man, boy, we surely do appreciate your time today coming on. This has been incredibly insightful for hopefully both of us.
Very much
Typically,
so.
yeah, and typically we ask, we're trying to really build a listener base here. So the more controversy, the better. And we always ask our guests to say something incredibly controversial. But knowing that you're not going to do that for us today, I'm going to do it on your behalf. Scott Gessler for state party chair.
That is the dumbest idea I have heard in Republican politics for a while. I'm just saying. It's funny because obviously I was involved in politics and held office and ran. And all these politicians will say, well, I want to spend more time with my family. Let me tell you something. I've got a 16-year-old and a 10-year-old, with my wife, and spending time with my family, I love doing it. Love being a dad, love being a husband, and it's a good thing. And I'm not seeing myself running for state party chair anytime soon. Let's put it that way.
I'm just hoping you're going to be too busy to utilize all your DU hockey tickets, and then your good friend Mark Waller was going to benefit from that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kyle.
Mark is always willing to join us at DU hockey. We are big Pioneers fans. My son plays for the, one of the junior Pioneer teams in youth hockey, and I never expected it, but I have become a hockey fan.
Now, there is a chance that our tens of listeners just might get behind this cause and draft you to run next spring.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's going to be a successful draft. Let me put it that way.
Hey, thanks. Anything to add before we let you go?
I think it's really interesting to sort of watch. I was really surprised, to be honest with you, that this court, going back to the reason you had me on, that this court so promptly issued a preliminary injunction. I mean, it was frankly pretty dramatic. And I know the attorney for the Republican Party. He's a good guy, and he, and obviously he took he filed a lawsuit and did it in a good way. But I will tell you something. At first the judge said, no, I'm not going to weigh in because you haven't served the party. You haven't given them notice. Or, I'm sorry, the other people. You haven't given them notice. Trying to call a meeting. But once they got notice, I'll tell you, that judge moved fast, really fast. And it was a pretty decisive order. So I think that the people wanting to, file this, have a competing meeting, they're going to have to really follow the bylaws to be successful at it. And I don't think, and if there's a hint that, or a belief that they're going outside those bylaws, or are not following them carefully, looks as though this judge is just not going to let that happen.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks for the great legal analysis. We'll be expecting your bill. Send it to Kyle, not me.
You get what you pay for here. What can I say?
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot. We appreciate it, man.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Nice meeting you.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So that was good. That was informative.
Yeah.
I learned some stuff that I had no idea. And I kind of liked evolving the conversation there to talk about, is it all even worth it at this point? With that close to the election and the vote for the state party chair coming up next spring. Yeah, they might all just be better off focusing on something else.
You know what, Kyle? If people want to continue to get this good content, what should they do? We forgot.
Subscribe on YouTube, please.
And like all of our content. Exactly.
So, is there anything pissing you off this week?
Kyle. There is always something pissing me off. But this week, this comes with breaking news. All right. You heard it. You didn't hear it on CNN. You didn't hear it in the Gazette. You didn't hear it in the Denver Post or with Kyle Clark at Channel 9. You heard it with Mark and Kyle.
Nice.
Right. Here's what is pissing me off right now. I have a lot of fun stuff planned in my life for the rest of this month into September. And guess what? Looks like my plans could be interrupted, because this is about me, Kyle. It's about what I want to do in life, not about, the good of the people of the state of Colorado. But guess what? Governor is threatening a special session. And it is looking more and more and more like that special session is going to end up happening towards the end of this month, maybe the beginning of next month.
Interesting. Calling it that close to the election?
Here's what the Democrats are absolutely afraid of. Those ballot initiatives that impact property taxes.
Oh,
That could really wreak some pretty serious havoc with state government. It's going to require, if special districts end up losing dollars, some of these ballot initiatives are going to say state government has to backfill all of those dollars. And we're talking, hundreds of millions of dollars potentially.
yeah.
And so, they've kind of said, shit, we're really worried that this ballot initiative that I think is 108 and 50 are the ones they're talking about. We're really worried those things are going to pass. And, easy to market, right? With 108 and 50, reducing property taxes, freezing property tax rates, things of that nature, stand a very good chance of passing. And it would just cause significant havoc. And maybe that's what should happen. I don't know, but it would cause significant havoc with the state budget. Moving forward, it'd have a huge impact on the general fund of the state. Because most people don't realize this. Almost all of the dollars in the state budget are spoken for, and the legislature really has no ability to control those dollars, right? So, they have to, 43, 44, 45% go to Medicaid spending, match federal dollars. They have no control over that. So much has to go to the courts and judicial. You really don't have a lot of control over that. So there are really only a few areas where they can affect spending in the state budget. And so, these ballot initiatives pass, that's going to cause a pretty serious problem. So right now, Gov's talking about it.
What would they do in the special session to head off the ballot issues? Because aren't they already going to be on the ballot?
Yeah. So, well, and that's a huge question actually right now. It's, a lot of times, so during the regular session, some people pulled some titles on ballot initiatives. And they started going out and gathering signatures and, threatened balloting initiatives or threatening to bring forward ballot initiatives, right? And so, so there's a lot of discussion in the session, and they came up with some compromises and then said, okay, well, we're not going to go forward with the ballot initiatives. Once an initiative is on the ballot, the question then becomes, well, even if you're the person that put it there, you went out and got all the signatures, you turned them in, they got verified. Do you have the ability to pull that back? And I think that's an unknown legal question. Maybe we should ask Scott that question as well. But I think there isn't an answer to that question right now, or they don't know about it. Now, certainly what the proponents of the ballot initiative could do is say, listen, this ballot initiative is out there. We can't pull it. But hey, we fixed this legislatively. We came to a compromise. We agreed with the legislature. Vote no. You don't need to vote yes on this ballot initiative. That's something that could happen. Who knows if the citizens go for that? But I think the idea behind this potential special session is to get together with the ballot initiative proponents and come up with some sort of compromise.
Okay. How long would the special session last? Is there a limit?
Nope. It's for as long as the governor calls it. It has to be a minimum of 3 days. And typically that's what special sessions, in all of my time doing this, the last 15 or 16 years, I've never seen a special session go beyond 3 days.
Oh, okay.
That's the minimum required, and that's usually what they do. Because the idea is you kind of try to have, these issues worked out before the session starts. So, leadership is meeting right now, whether it's, the Speaker of the House meeting with Rose Puglisi, the House Minority Leader, and the, Senate President's meeting with Paul Lundeen, the Minority Leader in the state Senate, and they're trying to come up with solutions to this problem. And I'd heard that the speaker was vehemently opposed to this special session, and was kind of the holdout. And then I was talking with one of my state representative friends today, and they told me that the speaker's starting to come around on this issue and realizing that a special session is probably going to be necessary. But nobody thinks that the Democrats are going to come out of this smelling well.
Oh, interesting. Well, again, I'm hoping we dive more into some of these ballot issues, statewide issues, as we get closer to election day. So that might be a good lead in to talking about some of those topics. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
But the important thing here is, and the thing that we need to understand and remember, is the way this negatively impacts my life, because that's what it's really all about, right, Kyle?
It is.
I'm kidding.
It is. In fact, I'll write the governor as soon as we jump off here.
I got plans, right? I got baseball games to go to. I got water parks to visit, lakes to kayak on. I can't be dealing with special sessions. I'm only kidding.
Well, maybe you'll get lucky and you won't have to, but sounds like another topic for us as we go forward here. So
not been a shortage of those, huh?
True. Very true. Well, thank you again for another fun episode, or interesting or informative episode for sure.
The honey badger always delivers.
Nice. Well, maybe we can get him drafted to run for state party chair.
Amen. Your lips to God's ears.
All right. Take care, Mark.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.